We got weights and fish! There we go!
It was a bait and switch that rocked the sport fishing industry. A crime that sent shockwaves across fishing waters all over the world.
I had European competitive anglers approaching me about it with global outrage.
Literally, I have been contacted about this case from people across the world. And so they're infamous.
A pair of fishermen looking to score big prize money caught lead-handed.
What we saw here was a couple guys who are now the Pete Rose of fishing, and their conduct was far worse.
Obviously, there's bragging rights involved in a fishing tournament, but when you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, I think that there's people that are willing to do some things that maybe they shouldn't be doing to take that prize home.
What made a normally peaceful group of outdoorsmen lose their cool and lay into a team of walleye fishermen?
When certain anglers or certain teams start winning a lot, you start to go, I don't know, are they really that good, or is something else going on here?
And what happened to turn this from a friendly competition to a crime?
They're forever going to be branded with the labels of cheaters and thieves.
I'm Jen Picciano, and this is Dark Side of the Land. It was a cool fall day on the shores of Lake Erie in late September of 2022. A field of fishermen had gathered for the championship tournament in the Lake Erie Walleye Trail.
And there's fishing tournaments that happen on Lake Erie almost every weekend. And I know that this is strange for people to hear this if you're not really into fishing or you haven't done a lot of fishing, but there's thousands of dollars on the line, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line for these fishing tournaments.
That's Chris Van Vliet, a former colleague of ours at 19 News and an experienced tournament angler. The Loot, as it's referred to, was concluding at Gordon Park at East 72nd Street. It's an urban Lake Erie marina on the east side of Cleveland. It was chilly for late September and breezy. After a day of walleye fishing in pretty difficult conditions, the field of fishermen returned to land, team by camouflage-clad team, to weigh their catches. More than 80 teams of anglers gathered to turn in their 5 best fish, entering their total weight and hoping for a chance at a big purse, about $30,000. These teams all paid big bucks to enter. Participation comes at a price. Entry alone is $400 a team.
The boats cost tens of thousands of dollars. A lot of times you're traveling from out of town. You've got the hotels and you've got the gas money, both for your truck and for your boat. You've obviously got all of your gear as well. On top of that, you're investing so much time into this, even for a 1 or a 2 day tournament.
Van Vliet knows personally the kind of time these teams invest ahead of the actual competition.
You're putting days, sometimes weeks of research and going around the lake. It's called pre-fishing. You're going and finding out, well, where are these fish right now? What are they relating to? Are they deep? Are they shallow? What kind of food are they eating right now? You're trying to figure all of this out so that on the day of the tournament, you can pinpoint this and you can figure out, all right, here's what they were doing last week under similar type of conditions. Maybe we can replicate that here today.
There is a lot more for those of us who aren't fishermen or anglers to understand the context behind the response when they were caught. The team made up of Jacob Runyan and Chase Cominsky had been winning this season a lot, and other anglers had been rumbling about it.
It seemed like there were a lot of suspicions about these guys because they just kept winning these tournaments, and the fish they were weighing in just suspiciously were weighing more than they look like they should weigh.
When you have that much success, it ultimately, it rubs people the wrong way.
That was tournament director Jason Fisher speaking to pro bass fisherman Mike Iaconelli on his podcast, Ike Live. I took a look at the posted results of the tournament, and you can tell even the experienced anglers had a hard time with conditions out on the lake that day and that late in the season. Of the 82 teams who finished this tournament, 50 of them zeroed. And the average total of those who did submit a catch for the weigh-in was only 9.5 pounds, or 2.2 pounds per fish. When it was time for Team Cominsky and Runyan to weigh their fish, their reputation preceded them, and Fisher suspected their basket would tip the scales.
Weighing in 5,
I gotta tell you, you gotta beat 16 some pounds.
On that chilly September afternoon, the mood was about to get heated. Fisher stood atop a small temporary stage in the marina parking lot in front of a trailer plastered with giant logos of the tour sponsors like car dealerships and outdoor outfitters. He'd studied the numbers to see what this team would need to secure a win at this event and ultimately take home $28,000 in prize money. The electronic display of the scale on the stage lit up and revealed a whopping 33 pounds worth of fish.
33.91, 33.91, your new leaders, locking it in, team of the year, definitely team of the year champions.
But when the weigh-in was over, you could hear the crowd grumbling.
Damn, 33.
Sharing their suspicions, Fisher asked the pair to hang back before taking off with their winning fish.
We need pictures of those fish over here. Stick around a while.
Fisher detailed the build-up to the blow-up to Iaconelli and his fellow pro fishermen.
You could just cut the tension with a knife, man, and you know, so that I can hear some anglers start jaw-jacking, and you know, I'm like, hey, you know, he starts to walk away a bit, and I'm like, you got to stay over here. I want to look at those fish. You know, and there was some back and forth, like, are you serious? You know, this has got to stop. And I'm like, I'm serious. I want to take a look at the fish.
The muttering from fellow fishermen only got louder as they waited for Fisher to take a closer look at the pair's catch.
Your fish are so much bigger than this. I ain't never seen it. Wait, they sell like fish. Are they coming open?
Fisher examined the winning walleye.
I feel this fish, and I kind of squeeze it a little bit, and immediately when I squeezed this fish, I felt hard objects in the belly of this fish.
They cut the live Facebook feed and turned on their own cameras to document the examination.
Come on, take a picture. You need a GoPro.
The video from that GoPro captured Runyan and Cominsky smiling for a picture, holding their prize-winning walleye, but they wouldn't be smiling for long. Then, as the rest of the field looked on, Fisher put the fish on the ground and sliced open the belly of the first fish. And he discovered the secret to Cominsky and Runyan's success.
We got weights and fish. There we go.
Inside the bellies of the winning fish were lead weights and fillets of other fish, turning what were 5-pound fish into more like 8-pound fish. In total, 10 weights were found inside the walleyes, along with several walleye fillets. Fisher gestures like an ump ejecting a hot-headed manager at a baseball game, seeming to toss the pair out of the tournament.
Everybody, money back. All these look at that. Go get that mother. How you like it now?
The crowd of fishermen, swearing like sailors, hurled a chaotic chorus of angry obscenities as they physically moved closer to Jacob Runyan, surrounding him.
Really? Yeah, way to go! All these cheaters! You're a piece of yeah! Piece of there's another partner involved in that! Yeah, where's he at? Oh! They got weight and all! Jake! Wow! You just lost everything, man. You lost your mind. You lost all your credibility. You're done. Where's Chase at? Somebody go find Chase.
Watching the videos that are out there, I mean, these guys are lucky they didn't get their asses kicked.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's that, especially as it's happening, right? You know,
yeah.
You could see the rage from the other competitors.
Iaconelli says he was bombarded with messages about this tournament almost immediately.
It hit, and then everybody wanted to tell me about it. So people I knew that know that I fish professionally wanted to tell me about it. People that didn't know I fished wanted. It got explosive with the traction.
As the confrontation played out, Runyan didn't yell back or argue. Didn't make an attempt to get away either, but it really didn't look like there was anywhere or any way to escape the irate pack of fishermen whose suspicions had just been validated. You could see Fisher as the tournament director attempting to calm the mob before things got violent.
Stop. Listen, everybody listen to me right now. Everybody listen to me right now. Jake,
I want you to leave. I don't want anybody to touch these guys. I want you to leave, please.
The angry anglers didn't lay a hand on Runyan, but they continued to lay into him.
Holy fucking tournament thing you've done this mother.
Jason, we gotta file for
sports. Every tournament that they won took from you guys this year.
I was just blown away like everybody else. And I know that if I was in a tournament like that and something like that happened, I would have the same response that all of those other anglers had. Like, not only are those guys cheating, but you feel cheated if you're the guy who's come in second place or third place or fourth place behind those other anglers. And what's really interesting is when you do a lot of fishing, you start to be able to be pretty good at predicting like how much a fish weighs. You can just kind of eyeball it because you've caught so many. And you see the fish that these anglers were weighing in and you go, there's no way that those fish weigh that much. And the tournament director obviously had an eye for that as well and went, there's no way a fish that has the body of, let's say, a 3-pound walleye is weighing in at 5 pounds. Like, something doesn't add up here. And it's funny when you dive into it a little bit and you look back at some of the old photos of these anglers holding the fish up that they've won previous tournaments with, things just don't look right. And it's funny now in hindsight, everything seems so clear. Hindsight's obviously 2020, but when you look back at this, you go, that just doesn't seem to add up.
If they'd gotten away with it, the duo would have received a total prize of $28,000, but they were disqualified immediately after they were exposed. When the dust settled, Fisher issued a statement.
I was completely disgusted with what I had discovered. Obviously, that led to profanity and unprofessionalism on my part at that point. So I want to apologize to the sponsors that I promised to hold myself at a higher level. On Friday, 9/30 of 2022, we witnessed one of the most disgusting, dishonest acts that the fishing world has ever seen in lifetime. There's always been stories about dishonesty and competition, but I personally have never seen anything quite like this. In competitive fishing, that is. The individuals involved here appear to have put greed and ego in front of anything else, forever tainting our sport.
He went on to apologize to anglers and sponsors and expressed disappointment in the black eye this was for the sport.
Tournament fishing represents so much more to me than what's being highlighted right now on social media. To see so much negative light on our sport hurts me to the core.
Fisher vowed that this type of behavior wouldn't be tolerated and promised to make it right.
All the information from Friday has been turned over to the Division of Wildlife, and they will handle the case or any potential criminal action from this point forward. The Lake Erie Walleye Trail has turned over all records and submitted a statement as to what happened on Friday to the Ohio Division of Natural Resources.
But this wasn't just poor sportsmanship. This was criminal. Jacob Runyan, a then 42-year-old from Ashtabula, Ohio, and Chase Cominsky, then 35, who's from Hermitage, Pennsylvania, were indicted and issued $2,500 bonds each. They appeared before a judge in Cuyahoga County to face charges of cheating, unlawful ownership of wild animals, attempted grand theft, and possessing criminal tools. Pennsylvania authorities seized Cominsky's fishing boat worth 6 figures as part of the investigation. Cuyahoga County prosecutor Mike O'Malley says they took the situation seriously and pursued the case accordingly.
All of those fishermen involved in that tournament had put up their hard-earned dollars, and they expected a fair and level playing field. And with the conduct of these individuals, there wasn't a fair playing field. The bottom line is that it's unusual, but it's also criminal, and they will be held accountable.
At their first court appearance, the pair were as tight-lipped as a walleye with the east wind. If you're an old-timer, you know what I'm talking about. In the halls of the courthouse, reporters peppered them with questions.
Do you have anything to say at all?
Runyan and Cominsky pled not guilty. As the calendar pages flipped into the winter months and many dry docked their boats for the season, Runyan and Cominsky's attorneys worked on their defense. Then, on March 27th, 2023, as other fishermen began packing tackle boxes and gassing up their boats for the spring season, Cominsky and Runyan suited up for court.
All rise.
So we're here not concerning the matter of State of Ohio versus Chase Cominsky and Jacob Runyan.
The pair traded logo-laced camo and fishing gear for sharp suits and fresh haircuts in the Cuyahoga County courtroom for their scheduled trial before Judge Stephen E. Gall. Before jury selection began, the prosecutors had an update. 2 of the charges, attempted grand theft and possession of criminal tools, were eliminated in a plea deal.
The state believes that these defendants today will be entering a guilty plea to count 1 as indicted, cheating, felony of the 5th degree, with that forfeiture of property, Your Honor. It's a Ranger Pro Fisherman model fiberglass boat, dark gray in color with silver and dark stripes. The state anticipates these defendants will be entering a guilty plea to count 4 as indicted. That's unlawful ownership of wild animals, a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. Along with this count 4, Your Honor, these defendants will agree to the maximum 3-year fishing license suspension.
By pleading guilty, you're admitting to the truth of the charge, which is that you did knowingly engage in conduct designed to corrupt the outcome of an athletic or sporting event. Do you understand that count, Mr. Cominsky?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Runyan?
Yes, Your Honor.
Fellow fisherman Nate Leaders showed up in court to send a message to the accused anglers.
I'm a fisherman. They stole money from other fellow fishermen, friends of mine. And I just wanted to see them. I wanted them to know I'm here, I'm still watching. Chase was a buddy of mine. I talked to Chase on the phone. I told him I thought he was cheating, and he told me he wasn't. He assured me he wasn't. But as we see today, he clearly was cheating.
For Leaders, this was a long time coming.
So it was suspected. There were things that were happening that just shouldn't happen. You don't win multiple tournaments in a row. A 4-pound fish is a 4-pound fish. It looks like a 4-pound fish. But when you weigh in a 4-pound fish and it weighs 8 pounds, it's obvious.
He feels a little satisfaction that they made admissions in court and changed pleas to guilty, but it wasn't enough.
1 felony and 1 misdemeanor, and I feel it should be a lifetime fishing ban. And they're only looking at 3 years, and they're not really looking at any jail time from the sounds of it.
All rise. The Honorable Court is now in session.
6 weeks later, Runyan and Cominsky were back in court for their sentencing. Cominsky's defense attorney, Kevin Spellacy, took one last chance to plead his case before the judge announced his decision on their fate.
With the understanding that they knew what they did was wrong. There's going to be a forfeiture of the boat from Mr. Cominsky, and it's a significant punishment in and of itself, Your Honor. I know the court's well aware of the publicity that's accompanied this case, and sometimes the negative impact it's had on our clients, probably more than many other cases that we handle in this building for whatever reason. Having said that, there are no excuses, Judge.
Greg Gentili, Jake's attorney, insisting he understands the scope of these crimes.
There's genuine remorse here. There is a significant penalty. But Judge, these 2 guys, they're now convicted felons. They lost their livelihood. That is their own doing. I'm well aware nobody feels bad for them. That was the choice they made, and frankly, they earned to be felons and have their livelihood lost today. There's seemingly endless negative public humiliation for these guys. We anticipate the court imposing a 3-year suspension of their fishing license. Effectively, it's a lifetime suspension for them. They're never going to be fishing in a tournament ever again.
Then prosecutor Andrew Rogoski took the podium.
Nobody on that day could have known the sort of viral spread that this case was going to present. The outrage, not just in the fishing community, and the media worldwide attention that this case has brought. They're forever going to be branded with the labels of cheaters and thieves. And after today, they'll be convicted felons, and nobody should feel bad for them because they deserve this and they earned this.
He proceeded to play a 6-minute montage of video clips from that day at the marina.
When you're going to hear him yell probably the 5 words that he's going to be remembered for the rest of his life. We got weights and fish.
We got weights and fish! There we go!
Since this case never went to trial, this is the first time the prosecution really got to present anything in court.
The other competitors, they knew. Nobody believes that that day at Gordon Park was the first time that Chase Cominsky or Jacob Runyan cheated. It confirmed suspicions and it led to an outlet of rage.
We had individuals who blatantly cheated and committed a fraud upon all the other anglers who put their money and time into these competitions.
County prosecutor Mike O'Malley seemed frustrated they could only charge the pair for the conduct in Cleveland on September 30th of 2022.
But I think all of us realize, given their unbelievable streak of luck, that those other wins previous to that tournament were probably fraudulent as well. So it was important, for the sake of the sport, for the sake of all competition, that we make it so that these type of cheating actions never happen again.
O'Malley detailed what their investigation unveiled about Runyan and Cominsky's methods.
It's very possible that they caught the fish, or at least some of the fish, in advance, but certainly they had the weights stored on the boat, and they had fillets that they had pre-cut apparently, and were wrapping the weights in the fillets and then ramming them into the fish's belly. So this was very well thought out. It was very well orchestrated.
When the ODNR law enforcement officers executed a warrant and seized that boat and photographed that boat, they found a compartment on that boat that literally smelled fishy and was sort of customized to have a secret compartment that would have enabled these defendants to conceal, whether it be fish that they caught the day before or the lead weights that would allow them to potentially pass a boat inspection.
Then it was Jason Fisher's turn to make a victim's impact statement.
I've run approximately 19 events. The defendants in this case have won 9 of those events and 11 top finishes in total. So over 50% of my events they've done well in. And I read a statistic somewhere that somebody who steals or is a thief gets caught approximately 1 out of every 48 times. This may have not been the first time. Also, the fishermen and the anglers believe that. They believe that in their heart. They believe that in their mind.
The next most successful person in these events won only 2 times. Fisher said they'd been disqualified and dinged before for rules infractions and polygraph tests.
There was always some form of smoke behind these two. In those 9 instances where these defendants may have generated wins, I guess we'll never know if it was honest or not.
The judge thanked Fisher for his instinct and attempt to squash the mob mentality that played out, and he offered Chase Cominsky a chance to speak.
I just want to apologize to you, Your Honor. I want to apologize to my family, my friends, the fishing community. I feel embarrassed, super embarrassed. It was that bad action that we made. It's one we're going to have to live with the rest of my life. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could go back to September 30th and redo things, but I can't.
Jacob Runyan also took the opportunity to apologize.
This is embarrassing. I'm ashamed. Most ignorant decision I've ever made in my life.
Turns out, Judge Gall, he likes to fish too.
Growing up by my house was a small pond that, my dad used to take me there fishing. And I still drive past that pond occasionally and smile thinking about that. And to me, that's what fishing is all about. Those moments, those memories, those traditions.
Judge Gall reflected on the individual skills it takes to find a fish and get one on the line.
You guys too have skills, but like so many other common criminals who come before me, you chose to use those skills in a nefarious way. And really, at the end of the day, you're convicted felons and cheaters.
For count 1, the judge sentenced them to community supervision and $2,500 in fines, which he offered to cut in half if they made contributions to a kids fishing charitable foundation for the equivalent amount. Their fishing license suspended for the max, 3 years. But for count 4, the wildlife charge, this was a felony. Judge Gall said he believed they were remorseful, but he wanted to consider a deterrence. He gave them a 10-day jail sentence. In the courtroom, jaws dropped and handcuffs clicked.
Gentlemen, you take these men into custody for a 10-day jail sentence.
They were caught red-handed, and they just are facing their consequences.
Prosecutor O'Malley said the judge's actions certainly sent a message.
They led them right to county jail, right from the courtroom with handcuffs, is that, he takes it seriously, and all people in these type of competitive sporting events should take it seriously. Do not violate the rules, and do not try to con your opponents by cheating. We charged them with the maximum crime. They pled to the maximum crime. They're doing 10 days. They forfeited a boat that's $100,000. And by law, their license suspension is the maximum that we can receive, which is 3 years. But much like Pete Rose, they should be suspended from competition for the rest of their lives.
He thinks tournaments are now going to reflect and do the work to prevent more of these underhanded tactics. Sadly, this isn't the first incident of cheating in tournament fishing, although with the video of the confrontation, it's likely the most high profile.
Really only at the very top level is it ever monitored. And in those tournaments, and we're speaking specifically here about like the Bassmaster Elite Series, you'll have someone else in the boat who's a marshal, or you'll have a cameraman in the boat who's watching your every move and making sure that everything is above board. But in every other tournament, it really just comes down to the honor system. And that's you going out, catching fish that day and bringing them back that day. And unfortunately, cheating in fishing tournaments isn't anything new. Like, cheating in fishing tournaments happens all the time. It happens every season. There's been many documented cases over the years of people catching fish in their pre-fishing period days before, putting them in baskets on the lake, and then on tournament day, going and visiting the basket, grabbing those fish and putting them in their boat like they caught them that day. There's documented cases of people having like some sort of a contraption underneath a dock, and you can put your, bait into that and then catch the fish that are within your contraption that are living under this dock. There's also been documented cases of people buying fish from other people, like, oh, hey, I saw you've been catching some fish here. I'll give you X amount of dollars if you give me those fish. So there's all kinds of different cheating. And again, it goes back to when there's money on the line, people aren't afraid to do whatever it takes to win it. And what's different here about what happened with this walleye tournament is there was this video that elicited this visceral response from people. And that's a really interesting thing when you're seeing a video and you're seeing people get so angry and so mad here. Because if I told you, oh, Jen, these guys last weekend cheated in this fishing tournament and stuffed these fish with weights, you'd go, oh, that's kind of interesting, kind of cool. But when you see the video, it changes everything.
I have to agree, because when I saw this, the headline kind of come past me on my phone like as an alert, anglers caught cheating in walleye tournament. I was like, that's, okay, what's the big deal? And then you see the money involved in it. And then you see the video and you're like, wow, this is a really big deal. This is intense. Visceral, I think, is a really good way to describe the reaction. People were angry because there's a lot at stake here. Ike and Ellie can understand and relate to the level of outrage displayed at the tournament.
The other anglers, the other participants have literally worked their whole life, right? From a child to, a teenager to, growing into this environment to compete and be the best at their craft on any given day. And then when something like that happens, it is it's a rage, because, it's like, it's cheating, right? So cheating in any sport, you can compare it to the home run controversy when, all the baseball players were taking steroids, right? I think there was an outrage there, right? By players saying, hey, I did it the right way. This is unfair.
But Ike and Ellie, a former Bassmaster Classic champion, says this isn't all bad for the sport.
I think a lot of sponsors that have been in the sport for a while, like I know, I've talked to some of my major sponsors after it happened, and, they were like, oh my gosh, it's a regional walleye circuit. And so they knew, right? But I think for maybe companies that didn't know, it hurt a little bit, because, you're looking at this saying, all right, it's a professional organized sport, yet how can this happen, right? So it may have hurt a little bit. but it may have helped. I think there's still a lot of companies in mainstream America that don't realize that fishing is a sport, right? That we have leagues and we reach people and, you know, we sell products that they make. So it may even have helped a little bit, right? So I wish, you know, I wish this would have been a more positive thing, but at the end of the day, it got people talking about fishing as a sport, you know, fishing as an organized activity where you can make money, where you can make a living. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
He's confident change will come out of this scandal.
I think a lot of the leagues will enhance, you know, their methods of checks and balances. Since that happened, I heard a lot of the walleye circuits that still use those criteria where you're allowed to bring, you know, dead fish, their team events. I heard a lot of them now are changing things. They're changing the way they weigh in. They're using like handheld metal detectors like you'd see at an airport to scan the fish. You know, I think you're going to see a lot of changes. And I think you're going to see more and more of these regional, local events really step up the way that they police the event, you know, because it's a lot of money. You're right. $1,000 or $30,000. It's a lot of money for people that are putting in their money and doing it the right way. It's a lot of money to lose.
In his statement, Fisher promised his anglers things would be different moving forward.
I hope we can learn from this and make some changes in tournament fishing that protect the integrity of all circuits.
They've won other tournaments, and I have to assume they cheated to do that. And how much money did they steal? We'll never know.
They owned up to this one, so we'll never know about the other ones.
When Chase Cominsky and Jacob Runyan look at their reflection in the water the next time they're allowed to drop a line 3 years from now, they may not like what they see. Their fellow anglers learned to trust their instincts when they smelled something fishy. I'm Jen Picciano, and this is Dark Side of the Land. Subscribe now for future episodes and find more Dark Side of the Land and photo galleries related to these cases at cleveland19.com.